by myself. Don't wanna be. There we go. Alright, now I can find the feed. Welcome in, everybody. Give me 1 second. Going to be sharing this out. If you guys want to do the same, it will certainly get you past the time, you know? It'll get you guys through this just as well as it's getting me through this time. Oh. Got the volume on. Alright, we got this. Welcome in, everybody. Wonderful Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. Thank you guys all for joining in. Hope you guys are doing well, right? Last time I saw you guys was on Sunday. So tonight being Tuesday, it's always a good time. Good time to have good discussions. I'm thankful that you guys could join in tonight. I'm thankful that in the next, 15 years, the world's not going to end. But we'll get to that topic, of course, here in a little bit. I say 15 because 12 is not a good number. Not a good number. I don't know why, but for right now, not a good number. As usual, my laptop running a little bit slow right now on the shares. Hope you guys are doing well. How's it going, Nancy? I can't see anyone. Actually, let me fix that. I can watch you guys. I can watch you guys while my computer sloshes along. We're almost there. General Eaton, welcome in. Oh, Mad Hops, welcome. Yep. So feel free to share this out, guys. I am about 10 seconds away from being ready. 10 seconds away. And then we will get started and, of course, start the show. General Eaton's going to get mad at me because I don't have that article pulled up, but I will pull up that article that he is so desperately waiting for. We will get into that. That will be the last one. That is about genocide. Genocide, I say. Genocide it is. So we will talk about a genocide bill that's being pushed right now and how that is going to be changing up the world of the future. We're, of course, going to be talking about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She opened her mouth, right? And anytime that she opens her mouth, it's a good time to put a microphone in front of that. Why is it a good time to put a microphone in front of that? Because something so insipid, something so ridiculous, something immoral, and something just factually and semantically incorrect is guaranteed to come out of her mouth. It is truly amazing just of how often she speaks and how often it is incorrect. And so we, of course, will be diving deep down into that a little bit. Not really. We're not going to go that deep. There's so much there. There's just honestly so much there. We're going to have to take it out. I knocked out your comments at your Android. Edward, thank you for joining in on YouTube World. So yes, guys, if you guys want to check me out on YouTube while I finish wrapping this stuff up and getting it all ready, go ahead and hop on over there to the YouTube land. Make sure you guys hit like and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell. You'll be able to tune in and not miss a show. So we know that Periscope is not always the greatest thing of sending the notifications. And if you like the beard, you like the truth, that's a place that will probably end up doing the same thing that Periscope's doing to you right now. But double the opportunities to get screwed over. Who doesn't want to miss an opportunity like that? It's 2019, guys. If you're not getting screwed over in every single way possible, are you really trying at life? Are you really trying? All right, let's get started. So we're gonna talk a lot of we're gonna do a quick debrief on the Covington Church, the Catholic school. The situation there, right? We covered that pretty heavily on Sunday night. I broke it down. I broke down the inner workings of that. So if you guys missed that conversation, it might do you well. It might behoove you to go back and check into that video. But as it stands right now, there's been a litany of people. There's been a mass amount of people that took the initial short snippet of it and they came out egregiously and viscerally against the MAGA hat wearing Sandman. So a lot of people have been retracting that. Beautiful. Thank you. It's good to be able to see evidence of the contrary, to see things that go against what you're saying or what you've stood for, and to be able to say, I messed up, I'm sorry, and be able to move on with life. Hopefully there's a lesson being learned for people who may not have been vocal about their stances, or for people who did take it to social media or whatever platform that they did, and be able to understand that, hey, let's slow down, get the facts, let's get the whole situation before we just jump in overboard and act like we know it all. Right? We're seeing already another situation that's being popped up, and that one in itself is it's a woman. It's got 9 million views on Twitter right now, and it is basically saying that yes, these little these boys, these young men, were harassing a woman. And so it's a short snippet of a video. You can see them acting very bombastically, not very proud of their actions in that one either. We are not. There's no way of confirming that it is them. There's no way of knowing exactly what happened. She said that they were just merely walking by, and then these boys became very, very vocal and very angry. I'm not willing to take the step, knowing the situation that happened with Phillips and with the boys, and be able to take another situation and go, well, I'm just going to accept this short snippet. I'm just going to accept this short little one-sided interaction and accept it as truth. So I hope if you guys are seeing that, you guys are also not going to be taking that in the same way. But we have people like Sarah Beatty. If you guys don't know who she is on Twitter, she is Nacho Sarah. She is an SNL live comedy writer, or SNL comedy writer. Apologize. And she made this wonderful tweet just to show how tolerant, how loving, how accepting, and how she just wants to make the world a better place. And she says, I will blow whoever manages to punch that MAGA kid in the face. Yes, let's punch young children in the face just so we can get some fellatio. Last time I saw in politics, fellatio got somebody impeached effectively, right? Bill Clinton got impeached for getting a blowy. You also had Madonna saying, hey, if you go and vote this way, it was either Obama or Hillary, I forgot which, but she was going, hey, you vote this way for me, you vote the way I want you to, I'll give you a blowy. I really don't know what it is about the left and the way that they think that we can just give blowjobs for things, but then they will also at the same time generally oppose prostitution. Sounds like prostitution for me. To me, right? I give you a blowjob, I give you sexual acts, you give me something in return, or you give something in my favor. Sounds like a lot like prostitution, but nonetheless, right? The left is omitting the logic and the theory behind this. So we're seeing a lot of people still stepping up the rhetoric. I remember there was a country writer from Tennessee, surprise enough, who said, "Look, if you guys go and kick this kid in the dick, I will send you all of my music in vinyl and autographed. I will send you this stuff. You guys just go kick this kid in the dick. You'll have a much better day. I'll have a much better day. We can all move on and be happier people now that this kid gets kicked in the dick." These people seriously need to reflect on what they're saying, right? Understand that this is not acceptable, and then also not only retract it, but also send an apology, because you're just a shitty person. You're just a shitty person at this point. And on Sunday, we read an article from Robbie Sove from Reason. He wrote another great article, and so if you guys want to go on to Reason and find this article is called "If You Still Think Nick Sandman's Smile is Proof of Racism, You're Seeing What You Want to See." And this is beautiful because it actually it breaks down the situation much further. I'm not going to read it in its entirety. I don't think that we necessarily have enough time here for this. But it is a great read. If you guys like this kind of stuff, make sure you guys follow me on Facebook. I am sharing this stuff out. I am actually going to be sharing out my show notes before I do the show. So as the time in between each show, if you guys want to get a heads up on what's coming out on the content, find me on Facebook. My name is Jason Lyon. I'm not afraid of my personal identity. Feel free to add me on there. You'll be able to keep up with things, and you'll be able to see exactly what it is that I'm going to be talking about, so you guys can get a little inside scoop, if you will. But nonetheless, this article really does break down a lot of stuff. It's a great it's great to see Robbie following up and continuing to put out great information that even somebody like Jake Tapper from CNN was tweeting out. So thank you for Robbie for maintaining on this. Back to the big story, back to the big debrief. So the big story around the school itself, the Covington Catholic High School, it was closed today. Why was it closed today? Were they closed because the oppressive, angry, young white kids with MAGA hats? No, of course not. It was because of the intolerant left. It was because of the intolerant people across this country were making threats against the children as well as the parents and the faculty and the staff and everyone. So there was so many threats there that they actually released this message. Dear parents, faculty, and staff, after meeting with local authorities, we have made the decision to cancel school and will be closed on Tuesday, January 22nd, in order to ensure the safety of our students, faculty, and staff. All activities on campus will be closed for the entire evening. Can you imagine having a situation in where a video vindicates that a vast majority of these kids did nothing wrong for merely standing there and for continuing to chant in order to kind of drown out the black Israelites that were shouting racial slurs, that were shouting just hyperbolic and hateful things and anti or homophobic or anti-homosexual things, that they would do chants and then they would stand there and when somebody comes up and faces them, Mr. Sandman actually stands his ground and doesn't move but tries to put on a smile. And because of all of this, they are receiving threats. They're receiving death threats. And like what we said earlier, they're receiving threats of violence. People are actually advocating for others to commit violence. And this is one thing where the Supreme Court actually doesn't protect that freedom of speech, right? I'm okay, right? As a free speech advocate, I'm okay with you saying that stuff under the grounds of, now I get to know who you are, and now I get to make sure that I don't patronize anything that you do, any part of your activities. I can have my own personal boycott against you, and if it's bad enough, I will advocate others don't or join me in the boycott against you. But the Supreme Court has made decisions in the past that say if you are compelling someone else to commit a crime, then you are held responsible just as much as they are, right? So you can't say, hey, go punch this person in the face, because then if that person punches said person in the face, you both will be held accountable for that. So that's... Hey, I just got a Facebook ad. Thank you, Nancy. Welcome in. But nonetheless, so this is actually understanding these things. These are not things that are protected by the Supreme Court. And so should somebody come up and kick Mr. Sandman in the dick, if somebody should punch Mr. Sandman in the face, they can obviously be held accountable. So in my world, right, they're held accountable. And in the world of the law, they're held accountable. But in the world of Twitter land, nonetheless, we know that they will not be held accountable. The absolute long list of individuals in this country who are verified on Twitter that have advocated for violence against people, for political opponents, or for individuals, or for whoever it is that are not held accountable. The list is enormous. If you guys listen to C.J. Pearson, right, the young conservative speaker that's made headways in recent time, he actually got several thousand people on Twitter who've been making egregious claims and advocating for violence against these kids. So it would be nice to see this actually get wrapped up and be handled, and to see these people really have to face the consequences for the words that they speak. Now, of course, like I said, I'm not in favor of the legal system getting involved on this, but certainly if you guys are somebody that believes in the Supreme Court and the laws in those ways, you should be advocating against this as well. So nonetheless, right, I am doing my own personal boycott of SNL. I've been doing it. I've been doing it for my entire life, basically, because SNL used to be good. It's trash now. It's been trash, and I don't have a TV. So I boycott everybody inadvertently. Now, when it comes to Nathan Phillips, right, he's the He is the Native American activist that was beating the drum up against Mr. Sandman's face. There was many people that were coming out and saying that he said that he was a veteran of the Vietnam War. There's been an issue with that, right? And so the timing of this, the people that have been reporting against him on this are right? He is not a veteran of the Vietnam War. The problem is that the quote is a Vietnam times veteran. Vietnam War times veteran. So it's just during the time. So even if the war was still undergoing, even if it was during that time, right, you would be a Vietnam War time veteran. And so I wanted to make a quick correction for anyone who has been pushing that. I may have said that. I don't think I said that on the last show, but if I said that in any comments, on any tweets or anything else, I will go back and reflect on those. But it's important that we get this thing right. Because we are held accountable for the words that we speak and the tweets that we send and the comments that we make. And certainly this would be one of those that we have to, right? So yes, he was not a veteran, Vietnam veteran. He never stepped foot on the soil there. But nonetheless, the slight play on words is what saves him on this. I apologize, I'm missing this. So there was, I actually pulled up one of the Zero Hedge articles, and it actually talks about some of the people. Nope. There we go. So CJ Pearson, like I said, he's got a tweet. I just liked it. So if you guys want to go through my likes, you guys will be able to find it there. So the tweet was, we are getting new submissions every 30 seconds. Every member of the media who defamed, slandered, and doxed the Covington boys on Twitter will be served. Each and every tweet will be archived and turned over to the students' legal counsel. There are lawyers out there that have already said they will take this case pro bono. They will not take a penny in order to help provide for the security and the safety of the children, as well as stand staunchly in defending them against the libel that has been placed against them. And that is to lie about the situation, and certainly we've seen that be promulgated and propagated by the media, and it's certainly something definitely worthy of being shut down as quickly and as harshly as possible, because it is not in the interest of America to continue to push this malfeasance in the way that they have. It is not in the interest of the media to continue to be the enemy of the people. I'm going to use President Trump's term. I'm going to use his terms because I'm glad that people are finally waking up to this, and I want to use the terms that's going to resonate with you. I'm going to give you guys the background on why I'm using that. I want it to resonate with you guys, because the enemy of the people is the media. They will tell you what to be outraged over. They will omit good information. They will be quick to the trigger. They will not worry about being objective journalists, but instead being journalists to provide you with a narrative and agenda in order to fulfill their desires. And when you have somebody like that, when you have entities like that, when you have the entire mainstream media standing on the front lines against the best interest of the people, it is hard to call them a friend of the people. It is hard to say that they have integrity. It's hard to say that they have honesty. It is good whenever they come back and they retract their stuff. But when you have to retract your stuff multiple times in a month, you cannot say that you are first in real news. You can't say that you care about that banana when it is clearly an apple, right? CNN. And so it's just absolutely clear to me that the media has been the enemy of the people for a long time, and I'm glad that President Trump has come out and made such a hard stance against them. All right, checking on the comments real quick. Yes, mainstream media is corrupt, 100%. So. Continuing on, I hope that we've covered the Covington High School situation in depth enough, right? Obviously, there was wrongdoing by many people, but Mr. Sandmann himself, I don't think has done anything, right? I have not seen any evidence of him in the slightest scintilla of information. And I'm sorry, I realize I missed this part of it that I really wanted to talk about. There's not an inkling of wrongdoing that I saw by Mr. Sandmann himself. There may have been other individuals there that have done wrong. I believe I saw some kids throwing up the middle finger. I think, there was one clip of one of the individuals there saying it's not rape if you enjoy it. Yes, it's still rape. It is, and that's certainly worthy of being denounced. And somebody, if they want to hold him accountable for that, absolutely. But Mr. Sandmann himself, I cannot find a wrongdoing by him. Standing your ground and waiting and not doing anything, if the inaction there is anything, it is not immoral and it is not wrong. But it goes to this idea. It goes to this idea that, and the way that people have been attacking him, is not only because he's been wearing a red MAGA hat. If you want to wear a MAGA hat, wear a MAGA hat. I don't care. It's not a big enough issue. And if you are so offended by somebody wearing a MAGA hat, you really need to stay the fuck inside. I apologize for swearing, but it's time that somebody talks to you like an adult. If you are so offended because somebody wears a piece of political clothing, advocating or showing that they agree or like the current president of the United States, and you think that this is offensive, you might be a dolt. You might be so insignificant. You might be so immature that you coming out into the public is making the public a more unsafe place. So you might want to check yourself, right? But it's not just the MAGA hat that they're going after. They're also going after his face. He was trying to smile, as he said. He was trying to smirk. And what it became from a lot of individuals was that he has a punchable face, that he should be punched, that his face was just beaming with white supremacy. And so I want to quote George Orwell from 1984, the book that was supposed to be somewhat of satire, not a prophecy, not a playbook for the future. But to quote it, it was, "To wear an improper expression on your face was itself a punishable offense. There was even a word for it in newspeak. Face crime, it was called." So face crime. So now Mr. Sandmann is guilty of face crime because he showed his face and he didn't know how to act because he was 17 years old. And he even said in an interview after the fact that he wished he would have just walked away. But he didn't know what to do. He was stunned and he didn't know really what to do. And can you blame him? Can you honestly blame him? A lot of people have never been in a confrontation or been in a situation where somebody has put you into an awkward situation. When people have never been in a situation like that and you don't know what it's like to freeze up, you don't really get to be able to talk about it. You don't really get to say, well, I would have done it this way, because you've never been in that situation. If you have been in a situation, then maybe you'd have a little bit more empathy or sympathy for him. Maybe you would actually have a little more understanding of this. He's 17 years old. He's not even an adult yet, not even a legal adult yet. There's so many issues with the way that this society is just so ready to crucify an individual based on the article of clothing they're wearing, based on what their face looks like, based on whatever it is that they decide that this is the faux pas thing right now. It's taboo right now to go out there and smirk, guys. Don't you smile at people, because that's now a white supremacist thing. Ooh. I even saw an article from the great and honest and integritous BuzzFeed saying that smirking is now a sign of white supremacy. Smirking is a sign of white supremacy. Can you tell me if a black man, if an Asian man, if a Hispanic man, if an Asian or a Pacific Islander was smirking, that they were somehow now advocating For white supremacy? No, of course not. This is absolutely the stupidity that the left is trying to push. Don't show emotion when you're out in public. Don't smirk at people. Don't smile at people. Don't wear articles of clothing I disagree with. Don't do anything I disagree with. I am your authority. I am your police. These people are so drunk with the idea that they get to control you. That is all that they want to do, is they just want to control you. They're control freaks. 100% control freaks. And it's truly abhorrent. And I hope that one day we can wake up and we can denounce anyone who wants to control anyone else for any reason. You don't get to control people. Slavery is not a good thing. Slavery should not be something that's even accepted by the federal government, but we still have the 13th Amendment. It's not acceptable. If you guys have something you guys want to say, you guys are free to call in. The phone number is 802-671-5328. Again, the phone number is 802-671-5328. Feel free to call in if you guys want to talk about this a little bit. If you guys don't, we will happily move on. We're about halfway through the show. We are still going to be talking a little bit about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez coming up, and then a bill about genocide. You guys, I know you guys want to hear about the genocide. Genocide's a big thing. Ooh, genocide. My brother was bullied bigly in the same school, is still dealing with bullying. Bullying, okay, so the calling about bullying. A lot of people have been talking about bullying a lot, and I'll use this as a segue for anyone who wants to call in. Bullying is not a great thing, but bullying, sadly, is a way of life, right? Bullying is something that immature people do to other immature people, or even to other mature people. And when you understand that immature people are going to be bullying, it's not that you want to just bully them into not bullying others, right? Sure, showing them the egregious parts of bullying is, there's some merit within that. But you should also, there's better ways of handling it, and just trying to wrap up all of these children and protect them from any form of bullying doesn't teach them perseverance. And perseverance is one of the best things that you can do. I was bullied as a child. I was bullied all through my life, basically. I mean, shoot, I was even bullied in the Navy, but you know, that's guys picking on one another because that's what we do. But nonetheless, when you're bullied, right, it takes a lot of fortitude to get back up and to keep doing what you're doing. It takes a lot of fortitude. It takes a lot of determination to persevere through groups of people that are bullying, through individuals that are bullying, or for anything. And that perseverance is the most important thing that you can do as a person. It is what can actually guarantee you success in life. It is what can guarantee you the bright light at the end of the road. And that is becoming successful in your job, in your relationships with your children, whatever it is, right? You have to persevere, and you have to teach perseverance. So it's not that you want to shelter your children from bullying. Sure, right? If it gets out of hand, you do, and you want to go and you want to step up, right? When my daughter gets picked on by other kids, I want to go and I want to grab these kids by the ear and I want to take them out. But of course, I don't do that. Why? Because she has to learn to persevere, because this is not going to be the first time, and is never going to be the last time that she's going to get picked on, that she's going to have somebody confront her, because she's going to be more successful than that. And the more successful you become, the more that people are going to have a desire to pick on you and to affect you. So the bullying situation, I think that we're trying to push for this protectionism, and I think that at the same time, we can understand that bullying is wrong, but we have to understand why bullying happens and what it creates. And as long as you don't stoop down to their level, you become a better person in the end. All right. So we will move on to the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and her egregious, reprehensible stupidity. Absolute stupidity. So I'm going to play you guys this one. We'll get into the climate change one. Let's break this one down. So 34-second clip.
And I think that the part of it that is generational is that millennials and people and Gen Z and all these folks that come after us are looking up, and we're like, the world is going to end in 12 years if we don't address climate change. And your biggest issue is your biggest issue is how are we going to pay for it? And like, this is the war. This is our World War II. And
all right, in case you didn't know that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez knows nothing at all of anything that anyone is saying about any of this stuff. So, let's start off with the basic premise, and I tweeted this out just before the show, just a minute ago. For decades, for decades, I mean, going on a century now, right? Climate change has been a discussion, and since the beginning of climate change being a big point in scientists or in journalism or in politics or anything else, it's always been 10 years, 20 years, a short amount of time, the world is going to be ending, or it's going to be uninhabitable. It's going to destroy the vegetation. It's going to destroy this, that, and the other. And for the last couple decades, it's been about 10 years that people have been saying, right? Not the scientists. Let's not conflate the two. So when it comes to politicians, they say 10 years. Oftentimes 10 years is the mark. So 30 years ago, 10 years from now, the world is going to end. 20 years ago, 10 years from now, the world is going to end. 10 years ago, 10 years from now, the world is going to end. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on on Monday night. In 12 years, the world is going to end. So thank you, guys. Thank you, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, because you're just now admitting that from the politician point of view, that we are doing better as a society. We've gained 2 years on by just keep on expanding it, right? We've got 2 more years compared to last time, compared to 10 years ago when we only had 10 years left. And that's, of course, ignoring the 10 years that have already elapsed. So, we've gained another 12 years in total since the last time we heard it. And Al Gore has already used this. All right, looks like we got a phone call. 1 second. Hello? Hey, how's it going?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing well, and yourself?
I'm doing well.
What's on your mind?
So where are we now? Are we still talking about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez?
We are. So I just got into the climate change discussion. We just listened to that clip, and we are breaking down just of how... Well, I was breaking down the chronological time, right? And we talked about the 10 years, 10 years, 10 years, and then now we've got 12 years. So we've gained 2 years, despite the fact that time has been elapsing. And we're just touching on Al Gore. What you got? What's on top of your mind?
Well, I mean, is the reason why it's 12 years is because Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says it is? Or where is she getting this information from? And why is it that she's never, ever questioned about where she gets her facts from?
Because she's not worried about being factually correct. Yes.
She's only worried about being right. Am I right? Or being morally right?
Morally right. But the problem is that even the left has ignored what morals are. They don't understand this, and so when you're a democratic socialist, morally right just means whatever I believe is obviously morally right. So she's not even factually correct with the way that she uses these terms. And there's a huge issue there, and of course, like you pointed out, where is she getting this information from? And really, it's just how she's feeling for the day, right?
Yeah, because I was just watching or looking at an article today where there was a place, I can't remember if it was Iceland or Greenland, where a glacier that had been melting for years has grown in the last 3 years 40 or 50% back from where it has melted before. So is that really a factual thing that you can use in an argument, or do you just say, well, just because that thing grew and it's getting bigger now doesn't mean that there's still global warming happening, and it doesn't mean that you're morally right. I'm morally right because I believe that the world is warming, and and I'm on the right side of history. So even though facts, prove differently, I'm still the moral. I take the moral high ground, and you don't.
Yeah, so when it comes to measuring ice caps, and that's something that a lot of people have been trying to do. That's been going on. I think there was even a New York or a Washington Post article from like 1924 that was recently pulled up last year, and trying to measure the ice caps is not a good reflection on what's actually happening there. The problem is that when we try to study these things, when we try to measure the climate, which is just weather over time, there's so many variables that are involved with it, and we don't even know the exact impact of these different variables when you add in the volatility of everything else. And so it makes it extremely difficult to get an accurate assessment. And when these models are created, it's actually is not just one model. It's actually is a model built upon a model built upon a model. And so you have these multiple tiers of different models, and each one of those has a percentage of failure, right? Of not being correct. And so when you stack these models on top of each other, you actually just get into the low confidence region of these even being remotely correct, and it's horrible.
So did she give herself enough years so that in 12 years from now, when we're still alive, no one will remember what she said?
No, of course not. I mean,
move forward.
Of course not. We're still talking about Al Gore and his mess ups and his slips and how New York City still isn't underwater. So I think Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez will not be somebody that's going to be significant. Certainly in 12 years. I don't think she'll be significant in 3 years or even 2 years from this day. I think she'll be taken out of office when she runs next, and that certainly is one of the reasons why I'm taking a stand, and every time she opens her mouth, I will be talking about what she says, because the inability for her to be factually correct or morally right or anything else is it's important enough for me to point it out for people, so that way we can make sure that we understand this and we advocate for a difference to be made.
One of the issues today, Jason, also is she now has a public forum. She has a platform. So wherever she goes, people are going to listen to her.
Yep.
And if she goes on the incorrect platforms, she's not going to be challenged. And so you have kind of, and I hate to say this, but you have kind of a very unintelligent population right now.
Yes.
That just take whatever it is that is said, and if it's not challenged, they just take it to be truth.
Yep.
And those people become indoctrinated and they become brainwashed. And the problem is that unless somebody challenges this person on a public platform, nobody's going to say, oh, well, you know what, maybe what she's saying isn't right. Maybe what she's saying isn't truth. And if that continues, the population is just going to continue to lean on this very liberal, progressive side of things. And I don't know how to stop it. I'm glad to see that you're on the webs here, challenging that. But could there ever possibly be a place where somebody could match her in a public forum and say, hey, look, what she's saying may not be truth?
Yeah. So that's my idea, right? Is even if I'm not on the same platform, to use any bit of my voice that I can to reach out to others. If somebody is able to cross-reference or get onto those platforms or to be involved, right? The louder I scream about this stuff, the louder I talk about this stuff and really break it all down, the higher probability that somebody will be able to cross-mingle with somebody within these groups and be able to pull away one person, pull away two people, or speak loudly about this and be able to hopefully make some changes. And so it feels almost like throwing fecal matter out of the wall and just hoping something sticks. But at the same time, I think that, even if nothing sticks, I'm hoping that it will at least encourage others to see this stuff and to understand it, so that they can get into arguments with not arguments, but civilized discussions with others and be able to provide the insight and the understanding.
I definitely would not. I mean, if I was a person that's in your position, where you have the media platform, and she has the media platform, not to take anybody like her for granted, because I was just reading another article where she believes in the 70% tax.
Yep.
And everybody would say, hey, you know what? That's crazy. You can't tax people at 70%. Well, in the polling, according to this article, that's like 60% or 70% of the population likes that idea.
Yeah, well, so it's not.
This is very dangerous and it's very scary.
Oh yes, absolutely. But the problem is that it's the way that she's laid it out is the same way that we've seen laid out in the past, like from Eisenhower, and that is that it's 70% tax rate on the marginal tax rate. So that means for her, it would be implemented the 10 millionth dollar that you make in a year. After that, everything is 70% taxed, and certainly there's a lot of immorality there. And I think I spoke about this last week when she first brought that up. I had brought that argument up, and I had actually torn that apart. And I'll try to send that to you. But I appreciate you calling in tonight, The Forgotten Man, and I'm gonna continue on so we could try to pump out the rest of the show. But thank you so much for calling in. I love the insight. I love the way you were speaking so eloquently. So thank you very much for everything you've provided, man.
Thanks for having me, Jason.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a good night.
Yeah, bye.
Thank you for that, man. I appreciate that. So, yes. All right. So there's a lot of fundamental issues when it comes to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and the way that she speaks and the way that she does. And I hope that I was able to convey to you guys why it is that it's so important that we talk about this. And it's just merely so that you guys can have the information, so you guys can combat others that you may be able to get into civilized discussions with, or if you guys are able to get some of that overlap, you guys can help provide that in that way. So, that's the whole purpose as to why I've made a promise effectively that I will be working to ensure that when she says something, when she basically says anything, that I will be here to correct her or to call her out on these things, right? And we've just merely been starting to scrape the surface of this 34-second clip. So we're already hitting on the climate change issue. She said that this is our World War II. This is our World War II. Now, World War II, if you guys haven't noticed, World War II is over. If you're going to talk about the next event, you might want to give it a number 3. If you want to say that this is just as impactful, just as important as World War II, and advocating against and fighting against what happened in World War II and trying to conflate the two, I want to know what it is that she thinks that this climate change really is. If the climate change is really going to destroy the world in 12 years, does she really think that was the objective goal of the Nazis back in the 1940s? Of course not, right? They were there to try to take over the world, but they weren't there to destroy the world. So they weren't trying to make it uninhabitable for all people. They were just trying to make it uninhabitable for the Jews, which would also be contrary to what she has said in the past, contrary to what others in the Democratic Party have said in the past, and that is that they have advocated for anti-Semitic stances, for anti-Israel stances, for or even advocated and believed in and supported anti-Semites such as Louis Farrakhan, and we will get into that in a little bit. But nonetheless, right, the world, this is our World War II, just bogus. She also said, and this is one of those minor slips, and she's going to be like, oh, this is, it's a minor slip, it's not that big of an issue. But she said, the millennials and Gen Z people, they have to come, or that will come after us. She doesn't realize she's a millennial. She doesn't realize. She doesn't even know. Millennials are 34 years old. Millennials are 35 years old. And guess what? She's not to that age yet. So she herself is a millennial, and she's saying that the people that are coming after us, and she's saying the millennials and the Gen Z people that are coming after us. Okay. All right. Cool. I guess you don't even know your own age. That's good. I'm so glad that you're so misinformed on all this. It's just disgusting. But nonetheless, actually, I hope I didn't miss anything. All right. So, climate change, she's obviously a complete dolt on. If it was this serious, if it was honestly this serious of a thing, if climate change is going to destroy the world in 12 years, why is she openly advocating to spend $40 trillion over 10 years for the government in other ways if this is going to cost so much? You don't say, we are going to die in 12 years, so let me just go and take care of all this other stuff and make it worse for those 12 years. And by the time that things get really implemented and start really functioning in the way that she wants it to, and that is the destruction of the country, the world would already be over. So she's got this level of stupidity about her, that we have this urgent time bomb that's about to blow, but we got to give grandma a Band-Aid. But we got to give universal basic income. But we got to give this, we got to give that, we got to give this. If this was seriously as big of an issue as what she's trying to portray it as, I don't know why you'd be advocating for social safety nets. You'd be saying, let's stop spending money on the military. Let's stop spending money on social safety nets. Let's stop sending money overseas. Let's stop spending money as a whole as the government and focus every single penny of revenue that comes in towards climate change. But she doesn't. Because it's not nearly as drastic and this will not be fulfilled. I'm telling you, she is not a prophet. She doesn't have a crystal ball. She doesn't know even what's going to happen next week. She doesn't even know what sentence she's going to say next. She really just has no clue on all of this stuff. And if you guys believe her, I apologize for you guys. I hope that one day you'll wake up and you'll have a better view and you'll be more informed on a lot of these topics. But she doesn't have a grasp on really anything. And like what the forgotten one, the caller had said, we have a completely ignorant population, right? Rather than getting informed on these topics and these policies, they say it feels good. It looks like it would feel good. So let's just implement it. And it causes a huge issue. Now, we're going to get into the next big issue, the next big speaking point that she made, that shows that she doesn't care about morals and she doesn't care about people. And that is that she said during the same interview as their climate change point was that a world that allows for billionaires is immoral. So a world that allows for people to collect things through transactions is immoral. So if somebody is suffering, then that means that you cannot gain whatever it is that you were to sell, and you must give it up to other people. And if you do not give away all that you collect, if you have excess, as what she calls it, if you have excess, if you don't give that away, then she wants to be able to take a police force to your house and threaten you. And if you still refuse, she's willing to throw you in a cage or to kill you. Sounds an awful lot like fascism to me. Socialism, fascism, communism. Those are all synonymous. They're all synonymous because they're all dealt with at the point of a gun. At the end of a gun is where socialism, communism, and fascism all work. So she wants to implement, and something that the Forgotten One had brought up was that the 70% marginal tax rate. And yes, there's a large part of the population that agrees with this. This is one of the fundamental issues with democracy. This is why democracy in itself is cancerous, because people are inherently envious of others who have more than them. It's not that here's the problem when people think this through. When they actually think this through. It's not that I don't wish that I could be successful. It's that they're successful and I am not. And so therefore they shouldn't have it. Sounds like an immoral reasoning. Sounds like you're greedy if you're saying somebody else has more than me, therefore I should get more. Sounds like you have a lot of greed. Sounds like you have an issue with other people's money. So it is an immoral thing that she is standing about. It is factually incorrect to say that it is immoral for people to have billions of dollars or to have billions of dollars in wealth or whatever it is that she wants to push out. I also love that during this discussion, she brought up Warren Buffett and Bill Gates and said, you know, they're not immoral people. They're not immoral people. So she points out two people that have been great philanthropists for this country, that have helped the stock markets after crash, that have helped build up and help provide jobs to millions of people and interact with millions of transactions each year to help ensure that more people are able to live a better life. She says they're not immoral, but merely having this stuff is immoral. Having that much amount of money is immoral. Having that much in wealth is immoral. And I really want to know, if everyone in this world was billionaires, would she say it would be immoral then? Morality doesn't slide. It doesn't progress up and down based on the society around you. It doesn't slide up and down based on what you're doing for the day. It really isn't that subjective. Forgive me for saying this, but if you think that morality is subjective, you don't know what morality is. You really have no clue. It is immoral to steal from people. It is immoral to hurt people. It is immoral to infringe upon the happiness of another. No matter how much you want it, no matter how shiny that bike is, you don't get to steal it from the other kid just because he has a second bike. I don't care of how absolutely immoral you are. If you go and try to steal people's stuff, then the ramifications that come against you are that you own. You own the responsibility. When you act immorally against others and you get the blowback, it is not their fault that you got the blowback. It is your fault for taking the action against them. And certainly, in a nation like America, if somebody was to be making billions of dollars or several millions of dollars each year, and they didn't agree with the marginal tax rate, and they move out of this country, what is Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez going to do then? She's going to slide the line back further, because now there's less money at the top, at where the tippy top was before. Now that those people have left, she has to slide that number down. And as that number continues to slide back, we fall into what happened in Venezuela. We fall into what happened in Puerto Rico. We fall into what happened in every single area where democratic socialism, communism has failed the people. And that is that you run out of other people's money. Because when there are opportunities for them to leave, you leave. When it is more cost effective for you to move to another country, you do it. So she's looking to bankrupt this entire country because she is a greedy, immoral dolt. That is all that this woman is. All right, I got to get off of her. My blood is boiling a little bit. My blood is boiling just a little bit. So I want to do a quick touch up on the Women's March versus the March for Our Lives thing, because I think that's certainly something that needs to be spoken about. So the March for Our Lives event, right? This is where the Covington church kids had the controversy. There was over 500,000, close to 600,000 maybe, people that were there in D.C. alone for that event. Massive movement, right? March for Life. So an anti-abortion, a protecting the life of the innocent march, had 500, 600,000 people there. Fantastic time, right? Mostly controversial free, right? We had Baby Hitler remark that caused a big stirring from Ben Shapiro. We discussed that on, I want to say we discussed that on Friday night. We had the Covington church kids situation. We covered that on Sunday night. But other than that, it was a pretty non-eventful day other than that. The Women's March. The Women's March, they didn't even expect to hit 10,000 people. So we had 500 to 600,000 March for Life, and we had less than 10,000 people showing up in D.C. for the actual Women's March. And there's two parts that I really want to talk about this for. The first part, Women's March. If you want to go about the ideological part of the feminist movement of Women's March itself, the necessity of it is dwindling, especially in the first world countries. The equality has been effectively achieved, right? There are some marginal cases, there are some marginal positions that haven't been addressed or haven't been handled, and I'll agree with those. But for the vast majority of situations, the feminist movement is not needed in the first world. Equality has, for the most part, been achieved. Now, that doesn't mean equality of outcome. Equality of outcome is an impossible thing to achieve and to maintain. You will never get equality of outcome because people are going to make decisions. People are going to make decisions that are going to hurt one group or another group, right? If you're a woman and you decide, hey, I don't want to work anymore, I want to take care of my children, right? You're hurting the equality of outcome. If you're a man and you decide to put in overtime, right, you're hurting the equality of outcome because there's no way of keeping all of these statistics that are in flux and keep them static. There's no way of keeping them still. So there's a huge fundamental issue there. So it's nice to see on that side of things that there's less drive there for that issue. The other part of why this is why there's a lethargic push, why there's so few numbers, was that there's actually, and I actually want to read this article. It's from the Jerusalem Post. So, and it focuses on a big point. I've been seeing this from people that are Jewish and from non-Jewish people throughout the Libertarian Party and throughout the left that I follow and involve myself with. But the article is called, I gotta scroll past this dude. I don't like this dude. Women's March leaders refuse to condemn Farrakhan after anti-Semitic speech. Yes, in recent years, Farrakhan has embarked on a wide-ranging anti-Jewish campaign which has featured some of the most hateful speeches of his career. I was speaking to you guys earlier and I was talking about how there's been members of the Democratic Party that have been involved and advocated and supported and been there for Louis Farrakhan, and now we're finally getting to that topic for you guys. We got this topic, and then we're going to talk about the genocide right after. Don't worry, General. I see you still sitting here. Your patience as ever. It's truly a virtue. So let's read this real quick. I'm gonna crank it out. I'm not gonna add too much commentary just for the sake of time. So in New York, high-profile leaders of the popular Women's March movement are refusing to condemn an anti-Semitic speech by Louis Farrakhan delivered last week. According to the Anti-Defamation League, prominent Women's March figures Tamika Mallory, Carmen Perez, and Linda Sarsour have failed to speak out against the Nation of Islam leader after he described the Jewish community as his enemy during a speech at the 2018 Savior's Day event in Chicago. In the audience, at last weekend's conference, was Tamika Mallory, one of the leaders of the Women's March, who got a special shout out from Farrakhan and who regularly posts laudatory pictures of him on her Instagram account, as does Carmen Perez, another leader of the march. Linda Sarsour, another march organizer, spoke and participated at a Nation of Islam event in 2015. Her most notable response to this incendiary remarks this year was a glowing post on Perez's Facebook page to praise Farrakhan's youthful demeanor. Ooh. Perez refused to denounce the 87-year-old's anti-Semitism and instead retorted, "There are no perfect leaders." Mallory and Sarsour failed to respond to a request for comment by the Jerusalem Post. The Women's March described itself as a grassroots movement that aims to harness the political views of diverse women and their communities to create transformative social change, a statement on the group's website explains. Women's March is committed to dismantling systems of oppression through nonviolent resistance and building inclusive structures guided by self-determination, dignity, and respect. So I'm going to read this last part, and then we'll move on. Amanda Berman, head of the New York City branch of the Progressive Zionist Movement, said she was dismayed that an organization devoted to social justice and tolerance had failed to speak out against such blatant bigotry. No one expects progressive leaders, who are humans, to be perfect. We expect them to be inherently good, as opposed to profoundly racist. It would be absolutely unacceptable to Mallory, Perez, and Sarsour if any other leader made heinous, bigoted comments like this about their respective communities, and therefore ironic and hypocritical beyond words that they continue to align themselves with somebody with such deeply held, hateful worldviews. It's good to see these people get put on blast. We've known that Linda Sarsour has been anti-Israel, that has been anti-Jew and anti-Semitic to a serious extent. She's been a fundamental issue, or this has been a fundamental issue that many have held against her. And it's nice to see the women, that people are dissenting from the Women's March because they have leaders that support a man that is grotesquely anti-Semitic. It needs to be handled, right? For a nation that wants to call everybody Nazis, everybody on the right side of the aisle Nazis, because the Nazis went after the Jews, and they want to say this, but they themselves are tolerant and accepting of people that are actually against the Jews. Just not a good place. Just not a good place at all. So now that we've gotten everything through, I want to give this tribute to Mr. General Eaton. He's been waiting around. He's been waiting for 2 shows now, so I apologize. I am slack. I am slack as all get out. This is a Senate bill that has became law. It became law on January 14th, 2019. And the bill is Eily Wiesel, Genocide and Atrocities Prevention Act. So I said it involves genocide, but it's supposed to prevent it. But this was from Senator Benjamin L. Cardin. He's a Democrat from Maryland. He introduced it in May of 2017. Took 2 years to go through. But nonetheless, I'm going to give you guys what this act is supposed to do. This act is to help prevent acts of genocide and other atrocity crimes which threaten national and international security by enhancing United States government capacities to prevent, mitigate, and to respond to such crises. This act may be cited as the Eily Wiesel Genocide and Atrocities Prevention Act of 2018. And so basically, right, when you read this act, what it's doing is it's giving the government more authority to, with regards to, if we look at Syria, right? And Syria did an atrocious act against, I wouldn't say Syria. So in Syria, there was an atrocious gas attack. We still are not confirmed with the intelligence as to who actually committed this. So there's still a huge fundamental question mark in the sky as to who the source was. It hasn't been found out yet. General Mattis, shortly after, even said that the intelligence did not say it was Assad, and so we still have a giant question mark there. But what this is doing is this is basically a way that when an atrocious or an atrocity or an attempted genocide is occurring, that the military and the government is able to come in and step in and do things. Not later than 180 days after the enactment of this act and annually thereafter of the following 6 years, the President shall transmit to the Committee on Foreign Affairs and the Committee of Appropriations Sorry, that was not the one that I wanted to read. I apologize for that. But basically, it defines the terms. Genocide means an offense under subsequent atrocities means war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. And transitional justice means you don't need that one. All right. So basically, if we find something to be being done to another country, it doesn't take an act of or a declaration of war from Congress in order to step up and do things. Now, there's two areas right now in the world where genocide is being threatened. The first one is Yemen. I've been talking about Yemen for a long time. Saudi Arabia needs to be cut off from aid. This was being discussed about pretty heavily in the news back in December. There's still a lot to be done there. This may be giving authority for the president to come in and to act against Saudi Arabia. I don't think that would be a logical thing. I don't think that the president will be doing that. The other area in which this could be utilized is, of course, in South Africa, right? The media has covered this up quite a bit, but it is still true nonetheless. Whether the media covers it or not does not determine if it's true or not. In South Africa, the members, I believe it's parliament that they call themselves over there, have actually basically made it to where it's legal for them to take the lands of white farmers, to not give them money or to give them less than market value, and to take it with force if necessary. Because we all know that government, if the government's authorized to do something, the government will do any means in order to get it from you. And so there may be an idea that with this bill that the president of the United States takes the military and sends it over into South Africa in order to defend against the genocide that is going on there. I don't think necessarily, right? My heart breaks for the people there. Let me start off with that. My heart breaks for the people that are being killed by their government. The South Africans that own this land, that are having their lands being stripped from them, being ripped from them, and being killed over this. My heart breaks. But I don't think that that's necessarily a reason to get the military involved in another nation to tear down and build up and nation build once again. We've been in Afghanistan for 20 years, right? Since 2002. So we're at 17 years. Been in Iraq. 18 years in Afghanistan, 17 years in Afghanistan or in Iraq. We've been in these nations, nation building for long enough. We have to get out. When it comes to Saudi Arabia or South Africa, SA and SA. When it comes to South Africa, there's obvious issues there. We can do things that don't involve utilizing military force in order to push against these things. Using trade as has been effective when it came to North Korea, right? We cut off and we put embargoes in place to ensure that North Korea was being strangled. We can do the same thing for the South Africans, for their government. You can compel them without using force, direct force. And that's the way that I would hope that President Trump would move on these things, if he does take action at all. Let me pull up this. None of what you just said is happening, you cretin Catholic. That's beautiful. You're such a beautiful person. You're such a beautiful person. Thank you for joining tonight. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate you. So anyways, so there's a bigger fundamental issue with all of this, right? And this act is just another piece of evidence for this. And that is that Congress continually and relentlessly relinquishes their authority delegated to them by the Constitution to other entities. If they really think that genocide is a bad thing, if they really think that atrocities that have happened in the past are important enough for action to be made, there is something that they can do that is directly written within Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11 of the Constitution that they can do in order to promote, in order to advocate, in order to encourage the President of the United States to step up and utilize the military force, if this is what the desired effect is. And that is by declaring war against the nation, against the entity, against whatever it is. They have the authority enumerated within Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11. They instead would like to pass off that responsibility, right? And so what they're able to do is they're able to say, if the President of the United States says, there's an atrocity happening, we need to get the military involved. And then he goes in and gets involved. And then let's say the intelligence was wrong. Let's say that the blowback was atrocious, right? And it kills millions of Americans or thousands of Americans or whatever it is, right? Congress can go, we didn't do anything. It wasn't us. We have allowed ourselves, right, the populace, to not hold them accountable, to not hold them to the letter of the laws that they are created by, that they were established by. And by us not holding them accountable, they have relinquished this to other people. Now, even if they've relinquished it, even if they say, oh, he has the authority because we passed this act. You passed this act. You are now held accountable. In the future, right, when the 116th Congress leaves, when the 117th Congress comes in, if they don't remove this act, then they are still just held accountable, just the same. Everyone will be held accountable by allowing for laws that are not in the pursuance of the Constitution, that are not in the pursuance of the tenor of the Constitution, to remain in effect. Every single one of them will be held accountable for these things if we become an educated populace in accordance with what the founders demanded of us, to ensure that the sanctity and the integrity of the federal government was to be kept in place. So we have to hold them accountable, and something like this is just grotesque, and it needs to be torn away. It needs to be torn apart, and I know it's not going to happen. I know it's not going to happen. We've gotten into the precedent where Congress just does this, and we accept it, and we don't question. We don't question anyone. We don't. I'm sorry if you guys may know the Constitution, and you guys may, and I love you all who do. But there are so many people in this country that don't even know what the Constitution looks like. They've never read the Constitution other than back in 7th grade, and they're like, yeah, the First Amendment. I know the First Amendment. It says you can have freedom of speech, and that's all that they know. So many people are ignorant, so they don't know what the federal government is supposed to be doing, and things like this, they slide it through, and not a peep in the media, not a single person raises up and says this is not right. And that's what I'm hoping when elected. I'm hoping that I will be able to find laws like these, to find acts like these, and to advocate against them, and to get you all informed, and so that you can hold everybody accountable for when they act against the Constitution. Because everyone, when elected, swears an oath to the Constitution, and they should be holding it up. But with that, guys, I appreciate you generally, and I thank you all for joining in tonight. Thank you all for the likes, for the retweets, the shares, for the support. Whether you guys were coming in to being a troll, or if you're coming in to enjoy the show or to add your own, thank you all for being here. You guys make it all worthwhile. Thank you all so much. Hope you guys all have a great night. The next time I'll see you guys is Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. I am Mr. Merca, the Bearded Truth, Jason Lyon. I hope you guys all have a great night, and I'll see you guys then.